Marlon here, and today I'm going to be talking about whether or not you should use free WordPress plugins on your website. Well, the short answer is yes. So there you have it. You can stop listening, you can stop watching right now and click off. Of course not. I'm going to give you more information and talk to you about some really important points in this video. So like I said, the answer is yes, you should be using free plugins on your WordPress website. And in fact, it's kind of like unavoidable because a lot of the times when you install WordPress from scratch, you're going to have some standard plugins that get installed anyway, just to give you some basic additional things that you do need on your WordPress website. Now, if you're new to WordPress and you've just been handed over a site, let's say you've had someone build it for you and they've given you the keys and you're now in charge of the site, you can go in and do whatever you want. You will probably get excited like a kid in a candy shop looking at how many plugins you can actually install for free on WordPress to give you all these fancy additional features and functionality that you think you need. In fact, looking at the repository on WordPress, I can see right now there are just under 60,000 free plugins available. And that's the good thing about WordPress, is that it has so many options to give you these additional features through these plugins that you have for free, which is amazing. But it's also a downside, in my opinion, to WordPress, because if you don't know what you're doing, you can easily go wild and install tons and tons of plugins on your website, not realizing how it can negatively affect your website. And it can actually be a big headache for you. So I'm going to talk about some key points here as to what you want to be thinking about when you go about installing free plugins on your website. So first of all, with free plugins, you want to be careful with the number of plugins that you install, as well as you want to be careful about the type of plugins that you're installing on the site. Now, the way it works is that when you install a plugin on your WordPress website, it takes up file space and it takes up database space. And every time you do so, it's making the site bigger and bigger, and it's adding to the bloat on the site, which in turn can bog down the site and make it run slow or take up more resources from the server that the site is running on, and therefore it can make it a little bit more unreliable. The site can go down more often because it's just overwhelmed with the amount of resources being requested or used by all these plugins. So let's say you end up with 100 plugins on your website that's like really resource hungry. You could end up having your site just basically sometimes going up and down in terms of speed, or it might come offline with error messages here and there. So you want to limit the number of plugins that you install. That's one thing. And make sure you just pick the ones that you do need, and just keep the number as low as possible. And where there's an alternative to not use a plugin, then maybe you should try that alternative, such as, for example, using some sort of custom code to add functionality into the site, which is a little bit more advanced, but you can always find these code snippets that do various things online. And as long as you test them and make sure they work fine for what you need them to do, then it saves you having to install a plugin for it. The other side of the coin is that you could end up having conflicts with your plugins. So the simple fact of the matter is that anyone can really learn how to code a plugin, and the quality of how they do so might not necessarily be on par with other plugins, and therefore they might have some code that clashes with plugins that you already have installed on your website. And just overall bad quality coding can cause conflicts and really make your site unpredictable, or throw up error messages, or even take your site down completely. So you want to make sure you avoid plugin conflicts by not using unknown plugins that have no reputation, that might be badly coded. I know this is a blanket message, but the only way to really find these things out is to really look at the reviews on the plugin page, and also just check online in general to see if anyone's commenting or talking about the particular plugin that you want to install, and just use your intelligence to make a good decision about whether or not you should be using it. Now, good coded plugins can also have conflicts with other plugins, and it doesn't mean that one is poor quality and the other is not. It just simply means that when a developer or a company creates a plugin, they simply can't account for every single other plugin that's available out there on WordPress. WordPress, like I said, has around 60,000 free plugins, and there are tons and tons of other plugins available across the board online that you can actually download and use, including premium plugins. And there's just no way for anyone to test their specific plugin with all of these others to make sure they work together well. So what a plugin developer might do is actually test with the most common plugins that's likely to be installed on websites and see if there's any obvious clashes or conflicts that develop, and they'll go ahead and fix those. But anything else, you're just basically going to have to figure it out and see if your plugins that you have already installed are going to work well with the one that you wish to install. Now, the way to do that is to just install it and see if it works. You might not want to do it on a mission. You might not want to do it on a mission critical website. So one that is earning you money, that needs to be online all the time, or one that is, for whatever reason, you need to have reliably running online. You, in that case, should be doing a test on a staging site, meaning that you do a copy of the site, a replica essentially on a server somewhere else that's separate to, you know, your main installation, so you can test it, install it and see if it works fine. And then chances are, if it works fine, it will work fine on the live site, and you can go ahead and then install it on the live site. Or in some cases, depending on the software that you use, you could push the update from the staging to the main site. Now, another thing you should be thinking about when it comes to using free plugins on your WordPress website is support. If the plugin goes wrong, you want to make sure that you have somewhere to get support from. You want to speak to someone via chat, email, whichever means you want to get the support by. You want to make sure someone's there to investigate the problem and to sort it out if it's to do with their plugin. Now, with free plugins, you're not necessarily able to get this. You are expected to go online and use the support forums on WordPress or some other place online where people might have been posting information relating to the problem, and there's no guarantee that you'll get a response, or at least a timely response that's useful. So for that reason, I tend to use premium plugins for my mission critical websites. So those are my websites that I use for my business or for clients. I make sure that they have premium plugins. That way, if there's something that goes wrong, I can just log in and contact support or send them an email, and I'll know that, okay, within a timely fashion, I'll get the help that I need. Now, when I do use free plugins as well, I tend to use ones that have a business model behind it, where they're earning revenue from maybe a more premium version of the plugin. So a lot of these free plugins in the repository or just online have a light version, and then they have a paid version. And typically what you would get is support and some extra features if you go with the premium version. And I have more peace of mind using those free plugins that have this type of business model behind them, because I know that they have an incentive to keep the plugin updated. If they don't keep the plugin updated, they will have their customers to answer to, because they are being paid at some level for the plugin. Now, if it's a developer that doesn't have this, and they're not earning any money, and they have to spend time updating the plugin and working on issues that come up, it is a big commitment for them. And if they're not earning money, it's very easy for them to abandon it, and you end up with a plugin that no longer works. So if you are going to go with free plugins, try to use the ones that have a good reputation and they have a way to generate revenue by selling premium versions of the plugin or selling licenses for even just support. Make sure you have that available to you as an option. With all that being said, one of my best tips that I have for you is to make sure you keep a stack of plugins, basically a list of plugins that you know you've tried and tested together that works very well, and stick with that stack. Unless you need to change something out, that something's giving you problems, or you need to change some features, you shouldn't need to necessarily change the stack of plugins that you use, because that way they're more predictable. You know that they work well together, and you know what to expect essentially, and it just makes life so much easier. What I want you to do is go ahead and check out one of the other videos that I have on screen right now that's going to help you with your website strategy or your content marketing, and I'll speak to you in the next one.